Welcome, everyone. Nice to see you. A happy thing when people are wandering into the temple. This is the equinox itself today, so there's certain magic in that. I've been thinking about autumn a lot tonight, so the koan that came to mind is the little one. It's an Isa poem about climb Mount Fuji, snail, but slowly, slowly. And so there's something about doing things slowly in autumn, for me. Meditate, but slowly, slowly. Get enlightened, but slowly, slowly. We had earlier this year, we had a mad idea, and Tess was part, she didn't seem to be here now. I think she's out picking apples. Anyway, we had this mad idea to just we'll do the goddess and all the manifestations of the goddess and things like that. And then just in the back half of the year. So yesterday we did Persephone going down, being snatched and taken into the underworld. We told one of the great myths, and it's such a great myth because, that the Greeks told it for 1,500 years and set their mysteries around it, their spiritual core. Anyway, it's an interesting and touching story to tell again, and it's recounted not completely but pretty well in the Homeric hymns, which and there's the one to Demeter is probably the most full of those hymns. So autumn as an abduction, autumn as a clarification, as a renewal. Here's I don't know if Tony Hoagland knew he was dying when he wrote this poem. I think he did, but I can't remember. But but when people have a grave sickness, often in some way they know, and their writing and their music and things like that talks about it before their consciousness does. And this was Tony's, and it's called Distant Regard. It's extremely Tony. If I knew I would be dead by this time next year, I believe I would spend the months from now till then writing thank you notes to strangers and acquaintances, telling them, you really were a great travel agent. Or I never got the taste of your kisses out of my mouth. Or watching you walk across the room was part of my destination. It would be the equivalent, I think, of leaving a chocolate wrapped in shiny foil on the pillow of a guest in a hotel. Hotel of Earth, where we resided for some years together. I start to say before I realize it's a terrible cliche and stop, and then go on, forgiving myself in a mere split second because now I'm dying. I just go forward like water, flowing around obstacles. And second thoughts, not getting snagged, just continuing with my long list of thank yous, which seems to naturally expand to include sunlight and wind and the aspen trees which gleam and shimmer in the yard, as if grateful for being soaked last night by the irrigation system invented by an individual to whom I am quietly grateful. Outside it is autumn, the philosophical season. When cold air sharpens the intellect, the hills are red and copper. When cold air sharpens the intellect, the hills are red and copper in their shaggy majesty. The clouds blow overhead like governments and years. It took me a long time to understand the phrase distant regard, but I am grateful for it now, and I am grateful for my heart that turned out to be good after all. And I'm grateful for my mind, which in retrospect I can see, to which in retrospect I can see I have never been sufficiently kind. So, gets a rhyme in with the last line. I am grateful for the phrase distant regard. I'm grateful for it now. I'm grateful for my heart that turned out to be good after all. I'm grateful for my mind, to which in retrospect I can see I have never been sufficiently kind. So, yeah, it's Tony. And I've always felt autumn to be a time of feeling life. You know, summer I don't. Summer for me is usually a time of being in life. And even as a child, I'd sort of disappear at the beginning of summer, and as if I came back at the end, having whatever I'd done, met new people, started new lives of various kinds with new friends and things when I was a child. And coming back in autumn seemed both sobering and deep, and somehow good. It was time. It was time. And I notice in that still some of the most interesting translations of haiku are by R.H. Blythe, Reginald Horace Blythe, who was in a prison camp with my teacher, Robert Aiken. It was a civilian prison camp, so people weren't driven to slave labor, but you know, they had to keep in line or they got shot. And Blythe just was living in Japan when the war started, and he just kept translating and writing poems and things, and he taught Robert Aitken both. He taught him to meditate using koans, and he taught him haiku, which became a great sustenance in the camp, I think, and perhaps later in life. But I didn't know anything about this when I ran across Blythe's haiku in Australia, but I started carrying them around with me because they seemed to deepen my life. And I didn't have a good theory of that. I probably resisted developing a theory, but here we are. And then, you know, there's really a good compendium. Bob House collected something he called the Essential Haiku, which has a good compendium. And one of the things he has, which is nice, is that he has the prose bits between the poems, and that was called haibun, and it was part of the essential nature of haiku is to have this sort of prose filler around, not filler, the prose, I suppose the prose bread around the sandwich. So, and it's really a nice thing, and it makes a difference. And you can tell if you can play with this yourself and tell, and yeah. Oh, the season of songs and sorrow and wide sky, begonia and memory. The grapes are very ripe, the persimmons are weighing the boughs down to the ground, the fox trots by with a vole in his mouth. So that's why the garden is doing well, and I have a sense of wonder. The first of the golden-crowned sparrows, thinned down by the flight from Alaska, arrived at the bird bath, taking a slow drink. So, and then climb Mount Fuji. This is not mine, of course, this is Issa. Climb Mount Fuji, Snail, but slowly, slowly. and the prose context somehow helps, you know. And so Basho is a restless soul. He lives in a little hut with a bamboo over it, and except mainly he goes and lives with friends on his journeys, where he gets, you know, food and sake, but you know, it's nice. The yellow chrysanthemums lose their color in the light of hand lanterns. And so he talks about his journeys and things he notices. And so, I don't know, I think there's something marvelous about the way they just loved the taste and the sight of life, and they put it in these forms that are so rich, so layered. The persimmons I love so much can't be eaten. I'm ill. That was Shiki. And however, when he was well, this is Blythe saying, he became ill from eating what he could not when he was ill. It's because he ate so much. Ill from overeating the persimmons. That's his next haiku. It's like, persimmons, I can't be eaten because I'm ill. Ill from overeating persimmons. It's like a kid, you know. It's like, write me down as one who loved poetry and persimmons. And then he said, the persimmon makes me think of the face of a servant at an inn of Nara. He's a little obsessed here. I think obsession is part of the haiku tradition. There's a modern haiku poet who's completely fascinated by hippopotamuses. And he has a poem that goes, spring blossoms, we must all become hippopotamuses. And the fact that there's no, you know, is the point, you know, so it's nice. There's Shiki again, examining 3,000 haiku, 2 persimmons. So yeah, I think there are probably there are a lot of spring haiku, but I think there are more autumn haiku than any other kind. So, I don't know. Since yesterday we spent it with the goddess of the grain, who, as far as I know, is the only Greek goddess with blonde hair, because her hair is the color of grain, you know. And I'll read Keats. A season of mists and mellow fruitfulness, close bosom friend of the maturing sun, conspiring with him how to load and bless with fruit the vines that round the thatch eaves run. To bend with apples the mossed cottage trees, and fill all fruit with ripeness to the core, to swell the gourd and plump the hazel shells with a sweet kernel, to set budding more and still more later flowers for the bees, until they think warm days will never cease, for summer has o'erbrimmed their clammy cells. Who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store, that's the grain goddess, suddenly enters, who hath not seen thee oft amid thy store, sometimes whoever seeks abroad may find thee sitting careless on a granary floor, thy hair soft lifted by the winnowing wind, or on a half-heaped furrow sound asleep, drowsed with a fume of poppies while thy hook spares the next swathe and all its twined flowers. And sometimes, like a gleaner, thou dost keep steady thy laden head across a brook, or by a cider press with patient look thou watchest the last oozings hours by hours. Where are the songs of spring? Aye, where are they? Think not of them, thou hast thy music too, while barred clouds bloom the soft dying day, and touch the stubble plains with rosy hue. Then in a wailful choir the small gnats mourn among the river sallows, borne aloft or sinking as a light wind lives or dies, and full-grown lambs loud bleat from hilly bourne. Hedge crickets sing, and now with treble soft the redbreast whistles from a garden croft, and gathering swallows twitter in the skies. That's the old tradition that Keats is following, really, of odes to the deities, odes or hymns to that which we love, and so that's his ode to autumn. And this is Paul Celan, and it's he wrote in German, and it's translated as Pierre Joyce. The autumn is called Corona. Autumn is eating a leaf from my hand. We are friends. We are picking time out of a nut. We teach it to run, and time rushes back to its shell. In the mirror, it's Sunday in dreams. People sleep. The mouth tells the truth. My eye descends to the sex of my loved one. We gaze at each other. We whisper out darkness. We whisper out darkness. We love one another like poppies and memory. We sleep like wine in a seashell, like the sea in the moon's bloody rays. Embracing, we stand by the window and people look up from the street. It's time that they knew. It's time that the stone grew accustomed to blooming, that unrest formed a heart. It's time, it was time, it is time. And this is something else out of the life of Europe. This is Charles Simic, Autumn Sky. In my great-grandmother's time, all one needed was a broom to get to see places and give the geese a chase in the sky. The poem goes on, but it just feels like that's really the poem. Giving the geese a chase in the sky. And I don't know. Let me, I've got lots more to say or read. I think I want to read. It's like autumn to me, autumn is best done through images rather than theories, I think, and feelings. There's this lovely bit in when Persephone gets released temporarily to see her mother temporarily from the underworld in the myth. She rushes to her mother. She gets down out of the chariot. The chariot is driven by Hermes, the god who goes everywhere, and the god of the mysteries and the god of diplomacy and tricks and all sorts of things. But anyway, he's the person who extracts her from hell and drives the chariot and the great horses up to her mother. And she jumps out of the chariot and runs to her mother, and they embrace. And then her mother says, "Tell me." Her mother suspects something, some trick. And she says, "Tell me, you didn't eat anything while you were down there, did you?" And she says, "Oh no, just one pomegranate seed." And it was very sweet. And he put it in my mouth and I ate it. And as a result of that, Persephone has 2/3 of the year with her mother, but 1/3 of the year in the underworld with her husband, with her spouse, the Lord of the Dead. And but then when her mother gets her having her fit about all this, and then they hold each other and they walk together and spend all day together with their heads leaning together really close. and just loving each other, really. And what a nice thing that does. And sometimes you'll see that with a mother and a child, or you see it with two sisters, just walking along really close to each other. And it touches me. Empathy and transformation. So let me ask a few other people if they have anything to say. If I can find them. Hang on. Amanda, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Not particularly, just I just keep thinking about enjoy yourself and like that there's no reason not to, and that feels like its own koan, and it's so lovely.
Excellent. Carry on. Tess, would you like to say anything? Carry on, yes.
I can pick up on that thread. I went for a really long hike this morning, unexpectedly long, which my hiking partner was not thrilled about, but I was. I was the Snail on Mount Fuji, and I was thinking, why do I love hiking in the fall so much? Because it's incredibly treacherous. Like there are acorns everywhere, and so you're pretty much sliding along everywhere you go. But there's something about, I don't know, this is true in spring as well, so I think it must be in the territory of that story, the leaving and returning. But there's this feeling of just participating in the great transformation of things. Like you're in the forest and you hear the drop of the acorns and the rustling of the leaves and the changing of the colors, and the sounds are different, the smells are different, and it feels very viscerally like you're taking part in something or something that's happening. And then we went, another very fall activity. There's an apple orchard close to where we live, and so we went apple picking afterwards. And it's on a very steep hill, definitely a Mount Fuji sort of hill for Fuji sorts of apples. And just participating in the bounty of life. There's something about just all these apples and all these people grabbing and tasting and biting and savoring, and I don't know, that's just like good for the soul or something. I was noticing there's something very infectious about it. But I was thinking during the meditation how interesting it is that full ripeness or full maturity or full something is so then close to winter, so close to the end. And that is part of, I think, the incredible sweetness or something, that there's nothing more. So now it's time for something new. And I felt yesterday, just listening to everyone as we sort of just let the story wash over us, like those great transformations, it was nice to just feel and take part in everyone who was there, their own bounty, their own losses, their own everything. So I don't know. I enjoy myself too, I suppose. That's all I've got.
Very good. Leon, you were there yesterday. Do you have anything to say?
Goodness. Yes, I was there yesterday. It was so wonderful. This morning, this slow thing has me, because I go so fast. So I'm kind of thinking I'd like to be more like a bear or something and kind of slow down and get ready to hibernate. So it's kind of timely. I don't know if I want to climb Mount Fuji, but even at a snail's pace. But I like the slow flow this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. John Joseph.
I love that Tony Hoagland writing thank you notes to his travel agent. When you're reading fall haiku, and a haiku came to me. I haven't thought of it in a couple of years, but it had to do with the moon, and I just had to unpack it. There was a backstory, and I think it's by Isa, and it's a very, very touching story about very hard times for farmers in Japan, and a family was basically starving, and so they the mother convinced the father that grandma had to be taken out and abandoned, which was a practice that they did in olden times. They did that both with babies. They'd leave them on the gate of a temple, and with old people, and so the father was reluctant, but finally he did. So he put his old mother on his back, and he took her out at night, and he left her out in the woods, and then he came back, and on the way back he looked up and he saw the full moon, and he said, I can't do this. And he went back, and he picked up his mother again and took her back home. But there's a poem that goes something about the old lady sitting alone in the forest, crying all by herself. The moon is her friend. And that's the poem that came to me.
Thank you. Alison, do you have anything you want to contribute?
I was also thinking about the Tony Hoagland poem and that quality of being that in the poem that comes with grave illness, or even it comes with late in life. I'm 65 now, and it's starting to feel, I'm in the autumn of my life. And it comes with the season too, where all of the aspirations of gain and glory or have been you can see that all those plans have now either come to fruition or they've withered, but there's a feeling of rest, of kind of ease that comes in this time of year, and that quality of mind. And I was struck in his poem how, as JJ said, he starts with the thing far away, the travel agent, where that spaciousness, the original spaciousness of mind, which is always there, but is it's not something we attain with purification or practices or something. It's something that we discover when all of the disapproval falls away, all of our objections. And so he first sees it, he discovers that, I love the travel agent. But the very last two lines of the poem, it's turned towards oneself. And you can feel it's often the last place that receives the blessing is towards oneself. And a couple of weeks ago, I was backpacking in the High Sierra with my sister, and it was a very intimate time with her. And she's 66, so we were startling people on the trail who they were looking at us like we were relics from another era, which we were. And that poem came to me, the Isa poem about the Mt Fuji and the snail, and I said it out loud to my sister as we're climbing up Silver Pass, which is like 11,000 feet or something, struggling up step by step. And she was not amused. she did not enjoy this at all. She's very much opposed to poetry, just on principle. She was trained in geochemistry, and she's very much the scientific mind who doesn't like the subjective. And so over the weeks, over the days that we were backpacking, other poems would come to mind, like there's a poem, "The wind blows hard among the pines, toward the beginning of an endless past. Listen, you've heard everything." And as it's sort of blowing through my own mind and out into the lake and the pines, and I'm just about to say it, and something in me just thinks, "Don't say it, Allison." You don't need to inflict this on your sister. And in a way that was a blessing. I could feel it as a blessing towards exactly who my sister was. And so she received the poem, but just through the sound of the wind in the pines. That's it.
Very good. Michelle, did you want to say anything?
Did I? Yeah. Couple things. Piggybacking on the Tony Hoagland poem and also aging. When you read that poem, it reminded me, what came to mind was a couple days ago, I took my dad, my elderly dad, to meet his new primary care doctor. And she was wonderful. She's actually a pilot. And I think every patient of hers is so excited to know that she was in the military and a pilot. But anyway, she asked him all kinds of questions. And at the end, she goes, so I have a philosophical question for you. And she says, what is it if you had to say one thing that gives your life meaning? And he said, well, is being able to be a positive force in other people's lives and, basically be useful. And he was putting his finger on the thing that also causes him so much pain, which is the sense that as he gets older and older, he feels like he's not useful. And he's not alone in having that feeling. And I was thinking, in listening to the Tony Hoagland poem, one of the lines was something like, watching you walk across the room was my destination. I'm sure that wasn't exactly it, but it was that thing that, like, you just have no idea what you're doing that might be useful, beneficial to others. And that focus, whether we're 20 years old or 88, on, am I measuring up to the, scoreboard in the sky, as I sometimes call it, it's so not helpful, and you just don't know. So that came to me. And then the other quick thing I want to say is, so when we were sitting listening to the beautiful music and it was quiet, and I thought maybe we'll just sit here in silence the whole rest of the period. That would be nice. And then John started talking about silence, and I just felt so good sitting in the silence. And then I noticed that what I was calling silence, there was banging, like outside my house. We're working, preparing to paint the exterior. And there was sawing and banging and hammering going on. And I was totally in the silence. And I thought, oh, it's like that. So thanks.
George, do you want to say anything?
Thank you. Not just that I love autumn. I think every year when autumn comes and the beauty of it, I just wish for the chance to see another one. It strikes me as riffing off what Alison was saying about the balance between silence and sound. It strikes me as a very time when the balance comes into focus. Spring is all about going out and giving and making plans and seeding plants, and summer is about taking in the sun, going out in a t-shirt and bare feet. And when autumn comes around, you have to slow down and take stock and figure out what you've lost, figure out what you've made, and whether it's good enough, whether you thought to get, I don't know, bar oil for the chainsaw or two-stroke oil and gasoline for the chainsaw. Is the oak seasoned enough? Is there enough in the woodshed to get you through? And it gets dark, and it's time to bring in the animals and the kids, and time to slow down and start to tell stories about that give and take and that balance that you're seeing now. And as the fire is crackling, and again, you tell stories about those seasons and the winter that's coming, and the hope that it'll all start over again. And that's all I was thinking about.
Thank you. I'm glad I asked you. That's what we do, isn't it? We tell the story of what is and what's up, and that's code. That's art and the life of being human. Todd, do you have anything you want to say?
Hello, thank you. First of all, I just have to say, Allison, that whatever that color is in that flower is just quite something. Really amazing. Also, for me, fall always reminds me of chopping wood, hauling wood. I grew up in New England on Cape Cod, and we heated with wood through the winters. And so the fall would be when we would start to gather. You know, we'd actually even go out into the woods and pull out deadfalls and chainsaws, cut them up and split, chop, carry. And, you know, I was a pretty typical kid in that normally chores were not something that I relished doing. But for some reason, I always liked gathering wood, and we would do it as a family. You know, everybody would do it. And sometimes the extended family would gather, and we'd all go out together and bring in the wood. I just liked it. I liked everything about it. I liked stacking it, and I liked making the neat rows, getting ready for the winter that was coming. I liked splitting it. I learned to chop wood pretty young, and I liked the feeling of the axe swinging down and catching the wood just right and the pieces flying apart. I liked the exertion of it. And yeah, that's what it feels like. That's what fall feels like. Something about I don't know, getting ready in the winter that's coming, and the gathering around the fire. When you heat with a wood stove, life in the winter tends to get very small as everybody, you know, all of life begins to shrink down to within 10 feet of the potbelly stove. I still like it. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you, Todd. Lonnie, did you have anything you'd like to say?
Oh, I do, John. Thank you. Slowly is really helping me this morning. And it also reminded me that there's this amazing book called The Sound of a Wild Snail Eating. There was a woman who was recovering from bad illness, and she was bedridden, and a friend apparently brought her a little snail in a box. And she developed this really an amazing relationship with this little creature. And I started to think during meditation of what it means to have that, you know, relationship happens, awakening happens in a relationship. And it made me think of all the kinds of relationships with much smaller, slower things you can have if I can just slow down. And yearly we have this beautiful orb weaver spider in the corner of our garage. And at this time of year, she's starting to really slow down. She just mends holes. I've never seen a spider do that, but she's just mending the holes in kind of a slapdash way in the beautiful web that she made. And I know her time is coming to an end. And I just marvel at the beauty of this spider and the things that she makes and how she changes and slows down in autumn. And it's just a lovely thing to be with it. Thank you, John.
Thank you, Lonnie. The beauty of the spider. I have the impulse to ask Alison to tell Todd what colors make up that flower that Todd admires. If you were to pull it out of a tube, what tubes would you use?
That's so funny because this is sort of a game that John and I often play where he'll point to something and you say, what color is that? And then in my mind, some part of my mind is always mixing colors and being a painter. So this I'd say you got to have some. It's a dahlia from our garden, which we plant late. We plant so we'll have flowers at this time of year. And for John is this master bouquet maker, and so I'd say I don't know what is this. It's got some cadmium, red, some violet, white, and maybe you got to dull it down with something. So maybe a little, I don't know, Naples yellow. There you have it.
Thank you very much. Good to know. Todd will now be able to reproduce it completely. Yeah. Games with color. There's a website which some of you may have seen, Is My Blue Your Blue? And if you Google Is My Blue, it'll come up. But people see blue and green quite differently. And so it'll ask you, is this green or blue? And you'll tell it. And it'll tell you where you are on the blue-green scale. And Chinese, the word blue can be used for the word green. So it's a real thing in the eyes, but it's also a cultural thing. Do I call it green or blue? But that one is all the things Alison said. There's a little bit of Naples yellow at the end.